Thank you, Kelsey, and good afternoon officially now, as we're at 12:02, and I'm happy to be here with everybody to talk some Google Drive. My name is Ben Songroth, and I am based out of Illinois, and I am a regional education technology coordinator. So my background is actually in educational technology and working with teachers on implementing technology in their classrooms. But I also just like sharing all of these tips to keep us on our toes for all of our daily life use and our work use of the Google tools and technology in general. So you can find my socials on there if you're interested in any sort of followings of what Ben Songroth is up to in a day-to-day world. They're there. And my email's there too if you have any questions and would like to reach out. Google Drive, that's our mission for today, is how can we kind of optimize and maximize our Google Drive usage. So whether you're a beginner Google Drive user, an advanced Google Drive user, I'm going to kind of framework this kind of hour that we have together centered around making sure you're hopefully getting the most out of Google Drive. So when I called it like our top hacks, what we want to look at is how can we make sure we're using Google Drive the most efficient way. So nothing in here, as I was talking to Kelsey before everybody joined, I would say nothing in here is this crazy advanced level of content, but they're going to be things that hopefully you're like, oh, that's really helpful. And I have the presentation shared with Kelsey and also a document here that she'll share out after the session as well that will just kind of have a list of a lot of the stuff and more that I've gone over today. So there might be some things that I won't have time to get to, but there's some stuff on here that you'll be able to look at and kind of say, oh, that's interesting, and maybe be able to look up on your own if you don't want to, or reach out and ask any questions that you have. I'd be happy to help. So first of all, one of the things that I always find is, teachers, people, everybody that I work with, one of the things is just accessing Google Drive and getting there effectively. We kind of all in technology fall into we're creatures of habit. And so one of the things that we do is we learn one way to access something, and then we use it all of the time. And we don't know that there are other ways to kind of get there. Well, Google gives us 1,000 different ways to do the same thing across all different platforms. And so one of the things that I wanted to kind of start off with by suggestion from Kelsey here is that if you are used to kind of just entering into your Gmail and then getting to Drive from there, we can get to Drive multiple different ways. We can start by just typing in drive.google.com, and that will get us to our Drive. And we can do that. But the thing that I always like to make sure people know, because everybody goes to their Gmail usually first, it's where we always kind of live from, is that our waffle up here in the top corner is what we lovingly call the waffle, the ice cube tray. Somebody called it a hamburger once. I guess it's stacked on top of each other, but it's actually called the Google Apps Launcher, but we like to call it all those other things. If you go in here, you're going to be able to see Google Drive. And all of these apps are places that you can get to. And if you don't like what order they're in, you can drag and drop them around. So if you use Google Drive a lot and you want to put that at the top, you can click and move that around in your apps launcher window here. So that's a quick way that you can kind of access Google Drive from anywhere. One of the other things that I would suggest is if you're using Google Drive a lot, this is kind of our first little hack other than moving Drive around in your Launchpad. If I launch Google Drive, it'll take me into a new tab. And then my suggestion, as you can already see, I've already done it here, is to bookmark it. And then when you bookmark it, make sure you put it onto your bookmarks bar. And then my Chrome hack, so we're kind of hacking it up here with lots of different hacks all at once, but is to take this, and if I was to, we'll remove this bookmark just for fun. If I click on the star, that means I've bookmarked it. And then when I edit that, it has a name of my drive. You can leave that. You can see here, it says my drive. It's in my bookmarks bar. What I like to do is just delete the name and hit save or done. And then now I have just the icon in here that I can now, and I always drag this over to the far left side because I read left to right. So I like to keep my most frequently used apps on the left-hand side or bookmarks. And now I have that drive icon that's in my bookmarks bar that I can click on and go to at any point. So as far as accessing Drive, there's multiple ways that we can get there, but those are kind of the best, right? So no matter where you're at, if you're in a new tab, you can find your waffle and you can click on Drive. If you're in Gmail, you can find your waffle and you can go to Drive. So lots of different ways you get there, but ultimately my suggestion, bookmark it. And then you can get to it super quick, anytime, any place when you're in Chrome. So that's kind of our first kind of go-to here as far as accessing Drive. If you are furiously taking notes and you are looking to take notes a little bit differently, and you want to take them in a Google Doc, because one of the best ways to maximize Drive is that we're using the Google Apps with them. So you're using Slides, Sheets, Docs, those types of tools. This is another kind of hack here that's not necessarily a Google Drive hack, but we're going to tie a Google Drive hack into it, is using a fun little shortcut in your Omnibox. So that's actually up here. The Omnibox is where you would type in a web address. Okay, but if you type in a new tab, just doc or docs, either one, .new, and hit enter, you get a brand new Google Doc. So you don't have to go to your Google Drive to make a Google Doc. You just go docs.new. So if you're like in a meeting really quick and you want to take some notes, you can just go to docs.new and you can start typing in your note. Now, one of the things we'll do notes here that I want to tie into Google Docs here is that after you title this document, and this goes for anything, so even these this slideshow that's in here or my Google Doc that I made, one of my Google Drive hacks, we're talking about organization of your Google Drive, and you want to know where things exist. You want to organize stuff in your Google Drive so that way it's in spots that make sense to you. I was telling Kelsey, I am sort of good at that. Like, even though I do all of these trainings, like I still get stuff lost. Like stuff gets clustered into my Google Drive. My work Google Drive has somewhere around 85 gigabits worth of stuff in it. It's crazy. So one of the things that I often find is that if I find that file, I need to know, like, where does that file live? What folder is it in? And you can actually see that by going up to the top. So if you go by the name of the file and just go over just a little bit, you'll see there's a little folder icon next to it, and it'll have an arrow that says move. And if you click on that, it's going to bring up a window, and it'll say current location is just in my drive. So that means it's floating in the greater my drive and not in a folder. Okay. And so what I'll do is I'll actually look and I'll find, these are all my suggested folders that Google's AI tool is, call back to one of our other sessions, suggesting that I'm looking at. Or I can say, you know what, I'm going to look at all locations. I'm going to open up my drive. Here are all of my folders. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to look for Google presentations. And now I can say move. And so I'm able to organize this Google Doc or a Google slideshow or any Google file, and I can put it into those folders without having to actually go to my drive. So that can be super helpful when you just found a file, you don't know where it exists, you don't know where it lives. Look up here, click on the move, and it'll tell you where that current location is. So again, just some, couple quick tips right off the bat in a next 50 minutes that's going to be full of them. But those are two. So, if you find a file, you don't know where it is, hit move. And hit that little folder icon there, and you can tell where it goes. All right, so Google Drive. One of the things that I always like to point out, and I'm going to actually jump over into my demo account here so we can live in this kind of crazy place that is here. One of the things I always like to point out and remind people when we talk about Google Drive is that you can store literally anything and everything digitally in Google Drive. So it doesn't matter what file type it is, you can store it in there and you can access it. Like I am a big proponent of, and I've been 3D printing like crazy for the last like 4 or 5 months. I could actually store all of my 3D print files in a folder in Google Drive, and then I can download them, open them up, access them on my computer when I need it. So you can put everything from 3D STL files for 3D prints to JPEGs for pictures, to Word files, to PowerPoint files. All of that stuff can be housed in your Google Drive, and it's all searchable, which is really cool, and we're going to talk about that. But then there's a spot over here, and there's just a few things. And again, this might be basic for some, but I want to explain how some of these spots work. And if you are not using like a workspace account, so that means like you're not using it for work as like an education account or a nonprofit account or a business account, some of these locations might not exist. So you can see if I go to my drive and my personal account over here, you'll see it looks just slightly different. Like here's my education account in the back. Here's the personal account. So there's just a few things that are different, mainly this workspaces area here. And so just something to kind of keep in mind that if you don't see that, that means that it's for a workspace for education or a workspace for business account. But maybe it'll eventually come to personal accounts. I don't know, hard to say. I'm not going to spend too much time on those differences. I'm going to mainly kind of stick in the global here. But when I do want to kind of go run through is this left-hand area over here, just to give you an idea of how some of this stuff works to make yourself a better user of this. So we have our central My Drive. That's where all our stuff's going to be stored. So that's where we're going to put folders. That's how we're going to organize folders, and we're going to organize files and all that stuff. That's going to be our main hub. Shared drives is something that's pretty unique. So a shared drive is a larger structure, and I am definitely not going to spend a ton of time on that because it is a big kind of crazy world as it is. But if you've ever been a part of a local network, as far as like, you know, you have a C drive at your work that you can store everything on site on that C drive through your PC, and everybody else that you work with can also access stuff on that C drive or that Atom server or whatever. That is essentially what a shared drive is. A shared drive here is something that when I open up a shared drive, I can share access with Kelsey to the whole drive. What in a crazy twist, and if I'm happy to follow up on an email if anybody wants to kind of navigate this a little bit. What happens is when you add a file to the shared drive, it no longer becomes yours. It becomes the organization's or the drive's. And what's helpful for that is if Kelsey and I are working together and we're working on a project and we're sharing files back and forth, and I leave and they delete my Google account, all of my files would get deleted. However, if they were in the shared drive, my account doesn't own those files. So they would live in perpetuity with the organization. So if you have like a lot of turnover, you have documents, I'll give you an example for our work. We just put all of our policy documents into a shared drive. So now those just kind of live there. They're not owned by anybody in particular. So that's really important. So if you see the shared drive and you're confused, that's why. That's what that is. It is different than shared with me. Okay, because shared with me is where you're going to find all of the files, and this is just a cluster in here of chaos that people have shared with you. So this is not a place that I would suggest living because it is a bit of a wild spot here. Because it's organized by share date over here. And if you are very active in Google Drive, it becomes a lot in there. So it is, there's a lot going on. If you find something and somebody shares something with you, so for example, if here's this one, navigating the digital world safely. I can open this up. What I want to do is actually open up that file. It's been shared with me, and I'm going to go ahead down here. Oh, I've already done this. So it says add another shortcut, but I would add a shortcut to my drive. And then it's going to be in my drive. I can organize it much the same way we were moving files earlier. And that is a very helpful way of getting it out of the shared with me area and allowing me to access it in other places. Okay, so that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. If it's in shared with me and you don't want to keep going back to shared with me, you can also right click on it and say, organize, add a shortcut. And that will put it into your Google Drive as well. So a couple of different spots there with the shared drives and shared with me features. They are probably the two most confusing places in Drive. So, I would say if you were a little confused on the shared drive thing, don't worry about it. It's not being used widely. It's a very helpful thing for organizations, but it's also kind of confusing. Even like we're a tech organization and we're still a little confused by it. But it's there. And so people have questions. All right, so I do see that a question did come up. Is the education account an admin console, and how does it differ from a personal account? So an education account, essentially the difference between an education account and a personal account is that you have to have a domain set up for your educational institution, and then you get an education account through that domain. So like this is my practice domain, training domain, because I'm a Google trainer, but I have a work education account too. The main differences between the two, you're limited in the features you might get in the education domain because they have to be turned on by an admin. And so an admin can toggle on and off different features. And they can stop things from like sharing files to outside organizations. Since we're talking about Google Drive, that's something they can do. They can say, you know what, we're not going to let you share a file with Kelsey from Cook County Higher Ed because we're worried about possible virus transactions or bad malware. So you have more control over that environment that like your kids can have access to. The things though that are limited with that is that the personal accounts have access to kind of some newer features sometimes that you get first, and you can get them right away, and you can't get them in your education account. Education accounts though get almost unlimited storage in your Google Drive, where personal accounts only get 15 gigabits worth of storage. So you have some, kind of main core differences there. But I could follow up with some more information on that with like a link comparing the two, if you'd like. It's a good question. All right. So as far as a couple tips, so back to our hacks here. So I want to keep you guys organized here. I want to make sure you guys are using Google Drive effectively. So one of the things that we can do is we look at these two spots here, recent and starred. My two go-tos as far as keeping me kind of like using Google Drive effectively and quickly. One of the ways that I use the recent tab is that the recent tab here, this shows me anything that I have opened recently. So in chronological order. I don't use this account. It's only really for training. So you can see I haven't opened it up very much over the course of the last little bit, but I opened that one up today. So it's there. If I went into my personal account, I don't know where that went. There it is. And I go to recent, you'll see that I've been opening up lots of stuff. So one of the things that's kind of cool about this is I can say, man, I was just working on that yesterday, but I don't remember what file it was called. I don't know what it was. Go to your recent, you can kind of scroll through and say, oh yeah, I was looking at that Bandon Dunes spreadsheet. Like that's what I was doing. So, that's a really helpful spot to be like, I was just looking at that yesterday, or I was just looking at that this morning and I closed it out. Go to your recents. It's all there. It's very helpful then for you to be able to kind of navigate back to stuff that you were working on. The one below it being starred, this one's really cool for people whose brains work like this. I don't ever remember to use starred, I'll be honest, because I use other ways of keeping myself organized. But I have talked to lots of people that love the starred area. So what you're able to do when it's starred is you're able to look here and say, okay, I use this book creator templates folder all the time. And so what you can do is you can right click on that folder and you can go down to organize and you can say add to starred. And when you do that, you get a little star that pops up next to it. And then also now it lives in your starred area. So essentially what you can do and how people use this is they star a lot of their like frequently used files or folders. And so they're able to go there. And so maybe you open up the same spreadsheet every day. You can star that spreadsheet. You can then find it quickly in the starred area by just clicking on starred. Okay, so you can see these are all the things that I have starred. If I don't want one of these things to be starred anymore, I can right click on it, go to organize, remove from starred, and now it's gone. So the starred area is a place that you can kind of like single out. It's almost like we talked about bookmarking Google Drive. It's kind of like bookmarking in your Google Drive. So we can go in, we can star these things, and then we have a clean area here that we can find them in. So that's just something that you can kind of go to. You can quickly find those files and really maximize your time and effort inside of Google Workspace and Google Drive. So those are kind of our two areas. So I promised Kelsey I was going to talk about this one, and this is one that is not available in personal Google accounts. So this is only going to show up in education accounts or business accounts that you're going to be able to use. But if you're using Google Drive for work, you should have access to this. And that's up here on the top left, and that is called Workspaces. So I'm actually going to jump over to my third Google account that we're going to open up today and go into Google Drive and show you how I use Workspaces, because they have been around for quite some time, probably the last year or two, but I have just started actively using Workspaces really within the last couple of months to try and help me be a little more organized. So what we can do when we're talking about being organized in Google Drive is that, we can make folders and we can organize our workshops. So like I have, or we can organize anything we want in Google in folders. So like I have a workshops folder that has all of my workshops that I do. And you can see it's big. There's a lot of stuff in here. I do a lot of different workshops. So I've got all these things. That doesn't help me when, say, like last week, I was presenting at a conference and I was doing 6 sessions in 2 days. And there was a 15-minute turnaround time between sessions. And so it was quick. It was like, get done with that one. Somebody comes up, talks to me for 5 minutes, asking me a question. Somebody else comes up asking me a question. Next thing you know, I got to start the next session. So for me to go into a workshop folder, search my Google Drive, try to find something, and then find that file, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. So even if I know where it exists, it's kind of hard to find. So what Workspaces allows is that you can create a workspace, name it. So I'll name it IdeaCon, because that's my next conference that I'm presenting at. And then what this does is it's similar to a folder, but it's not at the same time. So what it does is it's a curation area. So like I can put all of this stuff. It'd be like taking actual physical papers. And I take these physical papers. So this is presentation number 1, presentation 2, and I set them on my desk. And then I have them right in front of me. They're on my desk. And then I could take and, put them in a folder somewhere too in my desk, but ultimately they're like sitting out in front of me. So I have easy access to them. That's kind of what a workspace is. So as an example, here are my presentations from RSAC. So I and when I added a file, you see I go add file, my drive opens up. I can go in, find those presentations, add them to the workspace, and now they're all just right here in front of me. So I don't have to go chasing them around. Like they're all just, boom, they're in this one spot. They're not in folders. I can put up to 25 different files in a workspace. So like this was really helpful because when I needed to get to the next session, I just went to this workspace. Oh, there's my coaching one. Boom, open up the coaching one and it's there. So that was a lot easier than kind of trying to hunt through all of my folders to find those different presentations. You'll see there's another one here.
And I was going to say that the nice thing is that it doesn't remove it from your folders either.
Correct.
So it still stays where you're used to having it on a regular basis, but it just is there as well.
Exactly. And you don't have to worry about adding shortcuts, moving it around. Like, because one of the things like Kelsey's kind of mentioning, like you don't have to move it from like where it lives already. Because say I've shared that presentation with somebody else and I move it to another folder, I could by accident remove their access and then they don't have it anymore. Workspace doesn't do any of that. It kind of creates this like, little play area for you to add your stuff in and organize. Here was another one for another institute. Here was one from, these are just the different like workshops that I was doing with an ROE. It's just really a nice place to kind of, this is a good one, like HyperDocs examples. I needed a place where I could show these different examples of different ways to use some Google tools with kids. Boom, here all this is. I have docs and slides instead of in my drive. I have an entire folder of Google Slides examples and Google Docs examples. So I'd have to, when I'm demoing those, I have to like jump between folders. Nope. I just put the ones that I always show into a workspace. I open that up. I can show a slideshow. I can show a doc, and they're all right there. So Workspaces is pretty cool. It's definitely kind of maybe more on like the advanced level perhaps, but I think it also simplifies stuff. So if you are kind of a beginner user to this, it's almost a little easier to use a workspace to organize a lot of your stuff than worrying about sharing permissions on folders and things of that nature.
2 questions for you, Ben.
Yeah.
One about color coding. Is that something that you would recommend? And if so, what's the best ways to do that? And then the other one is just a reminder about how people can tell what account they're in, because that's something I know that sometimes happens for me. I'm like, I know that this is in my drive, but which account it's in as I have a personal account, I have work account, that sort of thing. And sometimes you may be in the wrong account. And so you've saved it to the wrong place.
Yep. So color coding, you can see I have a couple folders color coded. I am, I'll be honest, I'm not a big color coder guy because my brain doesn't really work in colors, but I know a lot of people that are. And so when you want to color code something, you want to color code your folders. The other thing is if your drive doesn't look like mine and doesn't have the list, it probably is in the tiles. Okay. And so this is a grid view. and this is the list view. And you can toggle those views back and forth up here. So the one thing I don't like about grid view is it doesn't give me the full name of the folder, and I can toggle it over to list view, and now I get the full name of the folder, which
Also,
is
just to let people know, you also have the option to look at pictures. So like if you
Mm.
are a visual person, you can actually see sort of at the top right there where you're seeing a example of it. You do have that option too, which is nice.
Yes. So color coding. If you want to color code your folders, everything rolls around a right click when you want to like kind of make changes and things like that. So right click on the folder, and then you'll see here we have this option to organize, and then you have folder colors. So you have lots of different folder colors that you can color code your folders, and that will allow you, you know, like one of the things I used to do when I was with my old job was we had this big shared folder where all of our presentations were supposed to live, and I color coded it red as like a visual for my brain to be like, oh yeah, I'm entering into a shared folder now. So anything I put in this folder, everybody can see. So that was one way that I did formally use color coding, was like red, danger, shared, you know, all that type of stuff. So that is something that I would suggest. Like if you wanted to make sure you wanted to share your color code your folders, that lives in right click, organize, and then you can change your folder color. And they just gave us more colors, like, I don't know, probably 3 months ago. So that's cool, because there used to only be like 9. Now you've got 20 or something like that. So pretty neat there for that. On that same vein, I'll get to the question of what, you know, how you tell what account, but I do want to kind of point out how I have my structure organized, because it lives in the same like right click area that we're going to go to. And so you'll notice that one of the things that happens in your Google Drive is that everything is organized by name. Okay. So everything is alphabetical. And so what you want to do to organize your drive, this is like my number one tip for organizing your Google Drive, is to organize your Google Drive is you have to hack the alphabet. Okay. And what I mean by that, and you have to kind of hack actually the ascending and descending organizational here by using the alphabet. So what that looks like is if I go into my drive, if I want something to be at the top, actually, I keep jumping around, talking about different where things are. So if I want a folder to be at the top, I have to have it be at the top of the alphabet. So for example, everything that starts with an A goes to the top. But if you're looking closely at my drive, I have numbers at the top. Because if you put a number in front of the name, numbers supersede letters. So my workshop folder would otherwise be all the way down with the W's. And I don't want to have to scroll all the way down to the W's every time I want to access my workshop folder. So you right click, go to organize, or I'm sorry, right click and then rename. And then you can put a number in front, and then I put a dash. You don't have to put a dash. You can put a space in there, and then it would be the same. You can put a parenthesis if you want, any of that stuff. Doesn't matter. But the number being first puts it to the top. Now, if you are not a person though that likes numbers, and you want to still get a file up to a folder up to the top, one of the things that's interesting is if I go down here and I want to move this blog post folder up to the top, but I don't want to put a number on it, you can right click, go to rename it, and then just put a space in front of it, and spaces go ahead of numbers. And so if you don't want to number it, space it. And then this is kind of the other little fun thing with that. If I right click, rename that, and I go space, 2 spaces go ahead of 1 space. So you can put more spaces in front, the higher up in the hierarchy it goes, which is pretty cool. And then the last thing that we can do as far as like naming and kind of hacking our alphabet, if you go to rename and you right click at the front, you get the emojis and symbols option, and you can drop emojis in. And it is really cold here today, so I think the frigid cold emoji works. And then hit OK. And you can see that emojis supersede numbers. So if you put emojis in the file name, they will go ahead of numbers or the folder name. If you put emojis in, or if you put spaces, spaces go atop of emojis. So it goes spaces, emojis, numbers, letters in your file naming structure. So naming your files with those things can really help like maximize your Google Drive organization and your speed at getting to different places that make sense. My word of warning with this is that if you share a file with somebody or a folder with somebody, because this works not only for folder names, but it also works on file names. So like my top hacks here, I can go in, right click in the file name, make sure I get in the right one, emojis and symbols. Oops. Oh, it highlighted that and wanted to give me a top. That's interesting. And I say, you know what? I'm going to share this. It's Kelsey's evaluation though, and I don't really like what work she's done. So I'm going to put like the cursing emoji in there, and then that's going to be her eval. And then I share it with her. She's going to see it. So just be aware that if you put an emoji in the name, the person you share those files with are going to see that thing, right? So don't put anything inappropriate in those files name, because they're going to see them in there. So you can see it even shows up in my favicon up here, that emoji is there. So just be very careful when you do that. Don't be putting the poop emoji in anybody's bios or anything like that. That'd be bad. So just some fun ways that we can kind of interact with naming things and putting them in the right order and making sure they're easily accessible to you, because that's what it's all about, is making sure we're naming stuff the right way, in order to easily access those things. So, all right. Any questions? Anybody can drop a question in the chat about that if they'd like. But let's talk. So as Kelsey asked, about knowing what Google account you're logged into. So this is my, this goes to maybe almost a bigger picture thing. And I actually, Kelsey, I'm going to grab a YouTube video here to drop into the chat so you can maybe share this out with everybody that I made a while ago. Because one of the things that that happens from this, there we go, how to separate your accounts. So this YouTube video, I'll drop it in the chat, and Kelsey can share it out, hopefully, through the follow-up email. This will help alleviate a lot of stuff in confusion on what account you're in. Because one of the things that happens is that people, see, I'm even getting confused, but I've got too many Google accounts open. People will go up here and they will click on this avatar right here that has the Google name next to it, and they will hit add account. And then you'll add an account and you'll sign in, and then you'll open up a file, or you'll be, and you'll think you're starting it in one account, in your work account, but you're actually in your personal account, and you don't know which account you're in, and then you get all confused when you're trying to find it. That's because when you add an account this way, you're confusing Google. I wish they would just take this feature away completely, because it just causes more harm than good, in my opinion. What this does is this creates another Google account, but it almost creates it like a subset, because when you log into Chrome, that's up here. So if you look up in the top right-hand corner of your Chrome window, you're going to see another avatar up there, and that's what you're logged into Chrome as. So like you can see, I am logged here into Chrome under my training domain, which means that anything I do almost always defaults back to my training domain. And if I don't realize that, and I am on another window, and I go over here and I go to Drive, this up here could have switched back to my training domain if I was maybe signed in with my personal account and I didn't realize it. So then I start like creating stuff, and I think I'm creating it in work, but I'm actually in my personal account. The other thing that I see happen all the time is I hand out the link to a slide deck, like this top hacks, and people open it up, but they're in the wrong account. And you would always tell what account you're in by looking up at the avatar in the top right-hand corner. And if I take this link and I just paste that link into a new tab here, what that's going to show me is that I'm in my work account now, and that's where that is being saved to. But if I just open that link up and I thought I was in my personal account because I had added it, it could be different. It could be in a different account, but it always defaults back to whatever one you're signed into Chrome with. So my suggestion is to look at that YouTube video that I just dropped in the chat and separate your Chrome profiles. So you've seen me just today jumping between my work account, my training account, and my personal account. All three are completely separate. Like none of them have any crossover unless I share files back and forth with each one of them. And that keeps it separate because I can take my work account here where I have all of my work bookmarks and have them all saved. And then I can go to profiles, or I could even click up here and go to Ben. And now I have all of my personal bookmarks. So I've got my banks, my credit card, my YouTube account, my Drive, all of that stuff is separated out between the two. So if you are using it the other way, my suggestion is always when you open something up, just look in the top corner up here and see which account you're logged into. And if you're in the wrong one, switch it over. If you see my training account is like logged in here because I used it for a demo one time. So I'm in here. You can see I did log in at one point with my training domain here, but that was to show people kind of that difference. So that's a good question because that is one way that you can kind of get stuff confused as to where things exist in your Google Drive is because they're not in the right one. So yeah, so good question, good prompt there. So we've covered some naming stuff. We've covered separating our stuff out. We have covered quite a bit of stuff here in our first 30 minutes or so. And I've moved to slide 5 in our presentation, but we're going to move on because we've actually done all of these things already. So workspace, colors, emojis, visuals, hack the alphabet. Okay. So one of the things that is the other kind of important note here that as we're looking through Google Drive, some ways that we can help kind of clean it up. If you are using stuff on a year-to-year basis and you want to organize things a little bit better, my suggestion is to create a Z archive folder. Okay. And one of those things when you do that Z archive folder, can anybody guess why we would put a Z in front of the archive? It goes to the bottom. If we just put archive, the archive would live at the top, and we don't want archive at the top. Archive should live at the bottom. So the archive, if we create this Z archive folder, what I'm able to do is look at, say, I'll go to new folder. We'll name a Z _ archive. So I've got my Z archive folder. Oh, I've already made one. But I say, you know what? I don't need this Peoria July Google One folder. Like that is long past. I don't really need to see it in my Drive. I don't want to delete it though. So I might need the stuff that's in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to say move. So I'm going to go down to organize and then move it. And now I'm going to move that into the Z archive folder. And now it's not cluttering up any of this extra space in my Google Drive, but I didn't delete it because if I deleted it, that would delete all of my stuff that I have in there. And I might still want that later, right? But I can go down now to my Z archive folder, open it up, and there that folder is. So it's just a way of like cleaning your house without deleting. Because sometimes you might need stuff from years past and you want to keep it, but you don't need to see it all the time. So there's that. Okay, so I see a question. Why do my work items show up in my personal Drive? So I think that is like kind of what we were just talking about was you've probably signed in up here to both. And at some point you were actually signed into your personal Drive in Chrome. And so your workspaces were getting confused with each other. So what I would suggest is separating them out using that YouTube link to follow how to create new profiles, separate your two worlds. And then when you do that, you can start either sharing stuff over to your work account. So if all of a sudden now your personal account owns it, what you can do is you can go in and then you can right click on the file, or you can click this little person up here. Again, multiple ways to do the same thing. And then you can share that over to your work account. And you can get it out of your personal account. So that way it's not in there anymore. And you can own it in your work account.
Important though to make sure you have editor, right?
Right. Make sure you share them with editor rights. Yep. Very good. All right. Couple more things. So we've created our archives. One of those things that I just find to be incredibly helpful and something that people don't usually utilize as much as they probably should, is searching in your Google Drive. So I always embark on this. I always kind of almost pontificate this a little bit to like remind people Google was a search engine before it was all of these other things. So they have this amazingly powerful search tool that has literally transformed humanity. Like it has become a verb to Google something. And it is built into all of their tools. So their OG product, search, is built throughout all Google Workspace tools in some capacity. And so what we want to look at is how we can leverage that powerful search tool to find things in our Google Drive. Because let's face it, as many organizational tips as I give you, our drives are still going to be pretty much a disaster most of the time. And so we want to be able to look at things quickly and efficiently. And that comes in our search area up here. Now, when you just click search, it is kind of like just broadening a search on the internet. Like you just search for something, you're going to get as many things as like kind of keywords drive in. Because here's the cool thing about search and drive. Search and Drive doesn't just search file names, it searches for words in the files themselves. So I don't remember what I called that file, but I know I wrote about, say, the Civil War. And I hit search, I'm going to get all sorts of stuff, including my AP syllabus. That's not named Civil War, but one of the units that we taught in AP US history was on the Civil War. So it's saying like, hey, you mentioned Civil War in here, so it comes up. So that can be really helpful because you can look for those kind of things where you're like, I know we were talking about this, but like, I don't remember what the name of that file was. And you can just do it. Now, here's one of the things though. This is very broad because it's, it's showing me PDFs. It's showing me spreadsheets, Google Maps, like, documents, slide decks, all this stuff. So what I like to make sure people understand and how it works is when you want to search for something in Drive, you can do a broad search at the top. Absolutely. But these 3 lines over here on the right-hand side that show you your advanced search, these options make your searching just another level of powerful because it's advanced. But when you open it up, it's not scary advanced. Like sometimes people see advanced, they're like, ooh, I don't know how to use that. It's not like that. What you actually are looking at here is you can now filter different things. So like I want to find, I know I'm looking, maybe I'm looking for that AP syllabus and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a bad example because you know what to search for, but like I want to look for Civil War documents, right? So I can go type document. So now it's only going to search for Google Docs. And I can say the owner is me, because if I don't leave that, even if somebody shared a file with me and it's in my shared with me, it's going to come up. And so it's like, no, I don't want anybody else's stuff because I know it's my file. So I can say owned by me. And then you can look, has the words Civil War. If I knew the name, I could do that. And then this is another thing that just came out maybe like a year ago, within the last year, is you can look in specific locations for it. So this allows you, like, this is kind of another level, but like, you're like, I know it's in my lesson plans folder, but I don't know where, because there's 7,200 other subfolders in lesson plans. You can say more locations and I can look for, like, just say ETT work. I don't know if there's anything in here that'll do that. FETC might have something. So select that. So now it's only going to look in that folder. So again, that's kind of like next level searching, but it can be really helpful because you're like, I know that that expense report is in the expense folder, but I can't remember who named it or what. Like, boom, you can look in there. And then, I mean, you can do anything. Like, you can even say like it was modified, 6 years ago, and it'll look in that time frame. So the advanced search area is really, really cool. So let's go ahead and see if I have anything with Civil War in the words of FETC 2019. No, I didn't think so. I didn't think I spoke on anything Civil War. So we're just going to go My Drive. We're going to do it again. So now you see how that search results are different from just doing Civil War. I've narrowed it down now to only 8 files instead of a whole list of files and different file types. So one of the things I just want you to, like, if you're taking away like a couple of key takeaways from our time together, one of them hopefully will be use this advanced search when you're looking for documents, when you're looking for things, even pictures. And this is the other thing too, is I don't maybe necessarily like even know what the name of it was or what the words are in it. But I can say I know it was a PDF. So I can go in here and just search for PDFs.
Hey, Ben, 2 notes though. Would you just clarify that if you are saving in Google Photos, that those are not saving in here? This would be a different Google photo that you would put into the drive specifically.
Correct. Yes. So if you are using Google Photos, and if you haven't used Google Photos, you can look at one of my old webinars on Google Photos and how to use that. Those full files and those photos are separate from your Google Drive. They count against the same storage, which can be kind of confusing, but it's not in the same area anymore. It used to be when Google Photos was brand new, but not anymore. So Google Photos is kind of its own separate entity. So if you're looking for a particular photo that you uploaded to Google Photos, you need to go to Google Photos to look for that. However, if you can still upload photos into Google Drive. So like here is an entire folder that I shared with my buddies to go when we went on our trip to Wisconsin for our golf trip. And then I broke it down into the different courses that we played. And then they uploaded their pictures to those specific courses. And the reason for that was because Google Photos is a lot harder to manage your organization on that kind of specificity. I didn't do this for our trip out west, just to kind of give you guys an example of how this works. So I instead created a Abandoned Dunes folder, and there's 770 pictures in there from like me and all my friends that went on this trip. And they're in chronological order, but there's no real, like, I can't go in and just look at pictures from one particular course. I'd have to scroll and find that day to look at them, versus the way we did it on our Wisconsin trip was like, oh, I want to go look and see all those pictures that Matt took of Mammoth Dunes. I go in here, there's all the pictures that Matt took, and now I can look at them like, oh, there's the one of Mammoth Dunes. So it's kind of just a different way to organize like pictures too in your Google Drive. It can be much more specific, and the file structure is better than Photos. Photos has its own benefits, Drive has its own benefits, but that's a good point of reference as to like why you would maybe organize those things a little bit differently. I think organizing photos in Google Drive is definitely for somebody who's a little more kind of particular about how they can like organize those photos and things like that. So.
And then the other question is, when you were doing that search function, you could see that it said like approved by or things like that. And I don't think I've seen that before. So could you tell me a little bit about that when you were doing the advanced? It said,
yeah. So the approvals, it's a education account and business account workflow process that you can set up. And I'll be honest, Kelsey, I've never used it before. So I know it exists where you can send different items off for approval. It is something that I believe you can just do. I've seen it done once. Let's see. Share. And then I don't even know where it exists anymore. I think it's, oh, that's not it. I know there's a way you can do it, but I can't remember because I've only seen it done like one time. But I know you can put approval processes on things and have people approve changes to documents before they can access them. But I can't tell you how it works because I've never done it before. So,
well, I will note while you're pulling that up that it did pop up the part where you have the opportunity to share things with an expiration date.
oh yeah,
that may be helpful for people that are sending things that might go out of date, or that you have some confidentiality issue with it, that you want it only out for a certain period of time to the public or to a group.
Sure.
I think that's pretty awesome.
So here's one of those things too. So in that kind of vein there, we were talking about, like, here is a top tips for Google Classroom that I had shared out. This is several years ago now, but I can actually put down here. So if I say, you know what, like maybe I have a contract, or like I said, it goes out of date, and I say, you know what, I want to just add an expiration to this. I can edit that expiration in the share feature, and I can set a time, even like down to the hour, and say on the 26th at 6 a.m. of January, this document's no longer going to be available to this person. So like they don't know that they lose access to it. It just is no longer going to be in their drive. It won't show up in their shared with me. It just removes them from that document. So yeah, so if you have time sensitive information that you want to say, hey, you've got 30 days to look at this, you can set up those expiration dates in the share box up here. All right. That's about it. Oh, this one is kind of interesting. I do want to kind of point this one out. This one's helpful for when you're kind of working in the same space as a lot of other people, or even yourself. Sometimes I catch myself doing it. So I'm going to go into my work account to show you this one. And let's see. Let's find a workshop that I've done recently. Actually, it doesn't even matter for a workshop, but it can be the AI one. There's all sorts of stuff going on in here. This will be interesting to see who's been snooping around in my presentations. So what I can do is I can actually click on a folder or a file, either one, and look up here on the top right-hand corner of your screen, and you have this little eye that says view details. And what that does is that opens up a pop-up window, and that gives you the information quickly about like who that's been shared with, so who has access to that folder, and then gives you like the last modification of it, last time it was opened, when it was created. So it gives you all of this different information here. You can also use this description field down here to like take some notes. So you can, like say like, oh, this is where I'm storing all of my AI workshops. And so people that open this up can also see that details, or it's helpful maybe for you to keep yourself organized. The thing that's interesting is over here on the activity. So when you look at the activity area, you can see when you or other people have accessed or edited files in that folder. So this one's pretty much all me. Oh, there's one. So Lisa was in here on November 27th and was editing my workshop. And so I can kind of go back in time. I added Holly as an editor there. So you can see, like, I can go all the way back and look at all this different stuff. Oh, Chrissy Darm shared an item there. So I can go back and look and see what people were doing that I otherwise might not have known. So I know teachers actually really like this one because it can be on a file too. So like, here's this file here. So I can see that Lisa created and shared this item into my folder. But I can also go in and now look and say like, oh, let's look at their homework here. Let's see if anybody's been in this one. And then you can look and see, was that student even in there? Did they make any changes? You can kind of track that. Oh, my coworker said that they were supposed to be in that document last night. Let's see. Nope, they didn't even open it up. Like, so you can actually kind of like, it's a little bit of like, investigating here too. The one way this really helped out, just as an example, we use the shortcuts. So you can move stuff here. If you right click and organize, you can see it says add a shortcut. And what that does is it keeps the file in its original folder, but allows you to kind of move it to other folders as well. So it's a little different than the workspace, but it allows you to kind of move it into different folders, which could be helpful for, items that were shared with you, or, group projects that you're working on, things like that. Well, for my job, we had this mega important spreadsheet that was shared between us and another organization. And all of a sudden, it no longer appeared in the shared folder that we were using with this other organization. And the other organization actually lobbied some pretty heavy accusations at a couple of people on our team, saying that they were the ones that moved it out of the folder, and that, it was their fault that they no longer had access to this. And this is a big deal because it was a big contract for us. And so my boss came to me and she's like, how do I prove that we didn't do anything to it? Because she's like, I still have access to the file. And so I said, well, let's click on that view details. Sure enough, we went view details, and then we looked at the activity, and it said one of their team members moved it from the folder to another folder and removed access from everybody else. And so she took a screenshot of that and said, see, it wasn't us. It was one of you. And it was able to put a real ending to that, disagreement where, they were confident that it was us that screwed up. It's like, no, your own team member screwed that up. And how we found that out was using the activity area. So it can be helpful when you're kind of debating on who's responsible for removing access to what.
Don't debate things with the educators, right?
That's right. Not us tech people. We can always find a way. All right, so that's about it. I mean, I'm almost out of time. I'll take some questions. Here I'm gonna stop before my 1 hour time slot, Kelsey, for maybe the first time ever. Even though I have like 72 other things that I could discuss. But I'll take some questions here if anybody has them. Also have that whole document that Kelsey's gonna share out with some more tips and tricks on it that maybe I didn't get to. But anybody got any questions that I can answer for you?
So just 2 notes so far. One, that the PowerPoint will include more. So when we send that out to you, you'll have some extra resources and maybe some follow-up questions for another workshop for the future for Ben. We love ideas that might come out of things like this for you. I would encourage you to unmute yourself if you want to, or put questions in chat if you are wanting to stay confidential. Just knowing this is a recording. But I also would love if you could just give me one tip for when we use Drive on our phones, Ben.
Okay. So Drive on our phones. I will mirror my screen.
Just in case if you didn't know that you could use Drive on your phone, because that is often where I'm accessing things when I'm out and about and I'm like, oh, that somebody needs that thing, right?
Yes. So that's one of the benefits of using Google Drive, available anytime, anywhere. So I have the Google Drive app. That's going to be your best way to access all this stuff. You'll also see that I have all like slides and docs and sheets also in separate apps, because when you use Google Drive in the app, you're actually not able to like open up and edit a Google Sheet or a Google Doc or a Google Slideshow without the app. So I have all of those. But when I open up my Google Drive on here on my app, I would say like one of my best tips that I find to be super helpful is the fact that I can actually take pictures and upload them directly into files. So I'm not going to open this folder up because it's kind of confidential, but just as an example, my taxes folder. So I share a Google Drive folder with my accountant. Well, he's my buddy, but he's the one that does my taxes for me. And when I get a W-2 in the mail, I go into my taxes folder, I open it up. I'm going to open up instead the tickets folder to give you an example here. And then I can tap this little camera icon and take a picture of the document. And you see how it like recognizes it and it takes it for me. And then now I can hit save. And now that document is going to automatically upload into that folder for me. And it uploads it as a scan, which is pretty cool. So it's essentially like you have a scanning solution on your phone. And you can see that in that case, it turned it into a PDF for me, which is pretty sweet. So it can be a picture that you take, or now I have a scanned PDF of the document that I took on my phone. So that's one of the cool like tips that I like to kind of show people is like turn your phone into a scanner. It'll also just upload pictures too, but that's one of the cool things. But you can see I have access to my starred area, all my files. Tap on the 3 lines up there. I have my recents in my recent area. So it's all kind of one of the things that's neat is it's all in the same. And then if you're one of those people that you like to have work and you want to keep your work account separate from your personal account and you're on the app, same thing goes. Tap your avatar up here and then you can manage your account or you can add another account. So like I only have my personal account on my personal phone, but on my work phone, I have, I think, my training domain on there. So I can open that up and then you can toggle back and forth between those accounts. Similarly, like we talked about in Chrome, when you're saving something, you're scanning an image, always double check what picture you're logged into up here in order to find it. But you can see even my search, I can filter out by documents. So a lot of the stuff is the same on your phone as it is on your Google Drive, on your app, on your web browser. So,
and I would say a quick tip is to make sure the pictures are different. If you have the ability to do so,
yes.
just makes it much easier.
Don't set the same profile pics. Yeah,
for all of them.
Good point.
You're all welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions now if you'd like. We'll hang out a little bit and answer those questions.
I have a question, Ben.
Yeah.
A local tech guy created a drive for me for our church.
Okay.
And it was very intuitive to go in and set up folders and subfolders, and I had no trouble. But now I'm trying to add or manage members, and I don't see what Google tells me I should see when I like double click shared drive. It just unstacks it and unstacks it. It doesn't show me manage members like, and so I'm now wondering if I should be on the admin council, and how do I do that?
So if you're like in this area here in your shared drive and you want to add people, like I have my new drive here, you have to go into the drive itself and not just in the kind of area over here. You want to go into the drive itself, and then manage members should be up at the top.
How do I go into the drive itself?
So are you in your shared drives?
I'm not right now, but
Okay.
I don't even see shared drives. I only see my drive.
Okay, so if you don't see shared drives, then yeah, you need to be in the admin console and enable shared drives. Yep.
Okay.
So yep, that's something you have to turn on the back end. Yep.
One
And also
more
confirm
que-
you're not in your personal account and you're in the correct account.
Okay.
Yep.
Also, one other quick question. Do you ever offer any one-to-one support?
Sure, we can talk about that. Yeah, you reach out, I can help you. I've actually
Okay.
done it before. That Chrome profiles thing, crazy enough, it was on YouTube, and a dude just randomly reached out to me. He's like an entrepreneur, speaker, consultant from like Washington, DC, and he was like, "Hey, can you help me?" I was like, "Sure." Crazy guy I just met on the internet and blindly responded to. Like, why not? Because you watched that YouTube video. So yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's how we found you, Ben, initially too.
Probably. Yeah, that's
You
fine.
know, it's been years now, but yeah. Anybody else have any questions or wanting to ask?
I was wondering, what's the difference between a shortcut and a starred?
Yes. Okay. So a starred, if we are starring something, we are simply kind of throwing it over into the starred folder over here. Okay. Or the starred area over here. So if I star something and I add to starred, I'm not moving it at all. I'm just putting it over into its own world, kind of over here in the starred area. And it doesn't really live anywhere. It doesn't change anything about where that file is accessible from in regards to like in my drive as a whole. So when you add a star, you're really only putting it over into this. So only two things happen. You get a little star next to it, and it lives over here now. A shortcut, however, is kind of a more advanced way of moving things around. So when you add a shortcut, what you're doing is you are telling Google that I want this file to live in multiple places. So similar, if you think about using your computer, okay, and you want to access Google Chrome, you could go down to the bottom left-hand corner to your start menu, go to programs, go to Google Chrome and click Chrome, and it'll launch. Or you add a shortcut to your desktop and you don't have to do all that. You just go, oh, there it is, shortcut, boom, boom, now I'm in Chrome. When you add a shortcut in Google Drive, that's essentially what you're doing is you're putting another area for it to live, but it's not making a copy. It's the same file. So why would you do that? Well, think about it like this. I have a file at work that I have, or a folder at work that I have to put in a shared folder with all of my team. In order for me to get to that, I have to click through 6 different subfolders to get back to that information. That's too many clicks. So what I do is I put it into that subfolder, but then I shortcut it and I say right click, and we'll put it in workshops here. Here's this folder. I want to access this folder in my drive. So I right click, organize, add shortcut. And I say, I just want to put this in my drive. So now it's going to live still in this workshop folder, but also live folder 2 out here. So it's in both spots.
Like I imagine people using that for would be like, if you have something that like send out to all your students or all your people and every single time in different ways, you could have it in every single grouping of something. So say you're sending out to your parishioners, and then you also wanted to send it out to another group of people that were like a ministerial group. You could have it in all those different folders. And so that those different groups could all have it at different times, but it still was housed originally someplace else.
Yep. It's just a way to access it from multiple different locations. So you're not digging into the same spot or sharing it with different people. It's very helpful to put stuff in with using shortcuts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ben, the last one is I'd love it if you could show people how to search based on the person that shared it, because
Oh, sure.
I have to do that with you. I go, oh, Ben's shared something with me. I'm going to just type in Ben at the top in the search drive area. And that solves that. Not have to remember the name of it or even what was in it, really. Just that it was
Yep.
from Ben.
So one of the cool things is if you have a bunch of people that you constantly are doing that with, all of their names are going to pop up at the top. So you can actually ask, like, look at that and be like, oh, I want to look for all the stuff from Brian. And then it comes up. But one of the things that we want to do is we want to search for, and you can do this multiple ways. You can just type in their name. And then you can see, like, here's all of stuff that maybe was shared with me from my personal account. And then that pops up. So that's helpful. Or in your advanced search over here, you can do a couple of different things. You can go to owner and say specific person, and then you can type in their name. You can even say, I know that I shared this file with Kelsey, and I can go down here to share to, and I can say this was owned by Ben Songeroth, but shared also to student Ben. So we're really getting specific. So there's multiple different ways you can go in and like attack, like how I know I shared it with that particular person. The one that I use a lot is the owner and then specific person. And then I know it was from Dwayne. And then I can hit search. And now I'm going to find all the stuff that he shared with me. So I use that a lot, is a way that I use that locate or sharing it from a specific person. Yep. It's a good one.
Well, I want to give time for last questions. So if you have a last one, this is your time. Otherwise, Ben has to go off after his lunch break, right?
That's right.
Got back to his real job.
Back to my real job. Yep. For another couple hours.
Well, I want to say thank you guys for all coming. If you still have a last question, hang out a little bit longer. We really appreciate your feedback. And if there's something in this that needs a deeper dive, or there's something else you're working on technology-wise, please let me know. We just keep digging into Ben and saying, what more can you give us? But we also have a variety of recorded programmings. I encourage you to check it out. Everything from photos to forms to spreadsheets and more. So lots of options.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. See you later.
Yep. Sounds good.